Hello, 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 everyone. Glad to be here. Uh, please welcome to the stage my lovely guests.
行くわよ。来世の試練よ。
Hello, everyone! I've been looking
Hello.
forward to this.
I have two.
Hello.
Hello, Crow.
Hi, Neff. Hello, Dunn.
Hey, how's it going? I don't really have anything here, but I do have a couple of placeholders that I can use for the entrance for Waffle.
Ooh, the Balrog. That's a good one.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Waffle.
Yeah, in case anyone's wondering about my name, Wunderwaffe is like a there were Nazi super weapons that they used during the end of World War II.
Oh, nice.
Kind of like the V2 rocket or the V1 rocket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it better than my YouTube name.
Alrighty.
Cool.
Yep.
Alrighty. Wonderwaffle, it's your first time on the stream. Please introduce yourself. Tell us how you got into writing.
Oh boy, where do I start? Well, I guess I mean when like starting writing, I guess my mom always read like C.S. Lewis to me, like The Wardrobe, and my favorite was definitely
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah. My favorite was definitely Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I really like that one. Yeah, I always saw the old war movies and everything like that. I remember like watching like Independence Day. That was one of my favorites. I was definitely big on Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Jurassic Park is awesome.
Yeah, anyway, so I always had these ideas that I wanted to like write down and whatnot, but I only started like writing recently. I've actually like developed my own type of like fantasy world and whatnot. I got something that I want to share today, but yeah, I've only written like a few stories. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Anything else?
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, alrighty. So, would you like to go first, and then Neff, then Dr. Crow, and then I'll go last?
Yeah, sure. So this is one that I wrote probably like last year. I guess I'll read like the intro and the first chapter. That should be long enough. So anyway, this one is like it takes place like in the same reality as the one I posted on Discord, but it's a different story. It's essentially like a Pied Piper type story, you know. All right, so yeah, I'll start reading the intro. A woman walked along a path through a ravine, followed by a young boy in his mid-teens. The boy carried a basket with several loaves of bread along with some pears, and both were nearing the destination. "Mother, why does father live down here so far away from us?" said the boy. The woman gave a glance back at him. Her eyes were emerald and seemed to glitter in the light shining down. He has to stay out here to protect us, she replied. Protect us from what? Hush now. They neared an opening in the ravine, but the woman stopped and turned pale. Why did you get down? She said. A sword appeared in her hand, and she crouched down, keeping him behind her. She glanced slightly out into the opening, appeared with metallic-looking sticks, and were approaching the path. But just as they were nearing where they were hiding, two of them fell dead with arrows in their backs. Loud explosions ripped through the air. The men ran around with their sticks pointing and firing, but one by one each fell to an arrow. The last started running toward the back of the clearing with a sheer cliff overlooking him. In front of him was a silvery reflective object which the man ran up to and collided with. He pressed his hand against it and turned back in panic. Another man appeared in front of him holding a small metal object and had dark patches hiding his eyes. Please put it down. It's all right, the man with the dark patches said. For a long moment, the two stared at each other. Then, the first began to lift his iron stick, and the last explosion followed, with the first man dropping. The other man grimaced and flung the metal device at the object, which upon impact disappeared. The woman then emerged, followed by the boy. Frederick, are you all right? How did this happen? Are they still outside? He said. She paused. No. Are they all deceased? Yes, she said. Let them rest then. She held out her hand, and the bodies of the men were swallowed by the ground and covered over. You should not be carrying that, she scolded. I ran out of arrows. What were those things they had? Asked the boy. Don't you know what those are? Said the man. The boy looked confused. Rosa, how do they not know anything? Shouldn't they remember? Some of them were younger than 2 when they left, replied the woman. I was running around with wooden guns at 2. And what about the city with the streets and factories? They don't remember anything. They're being brainwashed by you. You speak nonsense, she said. The children do nothing but good and are completely obedient. It's because they were removed from the harmful environment. That's just not natural. Children are obnoxious, greedy, and fight with one another. It's the spells over this commune. I think you know more than you're telling me. Daniel, give him the bread. The boy handed the basket to the man, who took it and threw it down. Is it too much to ask for some meat? There are animals, are there not? Our children are not going to slaughter animals. You smother them. You can't keep them babies forever. Look at this boy. I snuck into the army at his age. We're supposed to give them a better life, not introduce them to our horrors. It wasn't that bad. What you witnessed is nothing compared to what I went through. We both lost our families and suffered together. Sorry I didn't lose my kin all at once in front of my eyes like you. That is enough. It is all in the past now. Rosa, I know this place was meant to be a paradise, but it's a commune. After all, everyone is trapped here in this valley. It was meant to protect us from the outside. Rosa, I'm going to ask you this one more time. Do you know anything about the ones who created this place? I have told you everything. My predecessor told me that they saw the world and all the suffering and created this place as a sanctuary where children could come and have all the water, food, and protection they would ever need. Upon reaching a certain age, they pass their powers on to our predecessors. And they gave their powers to us. I've heard it all before. That cursed one threw his powers on me. You accepted the power. No, it was forced upon. Let us sigh. Enough of this. Enough lamenting of the past. Do you think more soldiers will come? I can't be sure. Close it now, and we'll decide on a new place to open it tomorrow. She held out her hand, and the reflecting object disappeared. Daniel, come on, we are going now. Rosa, why don't you leave him here? I'll take him back later. It is time to sleep in an hour, she said. You're always telling me to help with those heathens. How about letting me tell him a bedtime story? You want me to tell you about that gun, right, boy? Oh, don't show him those dusty old relics of yours. We're getting old, lass. Shouldn't we start training successors? Speak for yourself. We should pick someone on the outside, as we were. How about it, boy? Sure, father, replied the boy. The man turned to the woman and rolled her eyes. Oh, Rosa, run along now. I'll take him back soon. Daniel, do you want to stay with him? The teenager had always been scared of the man as a child, but such fear had dissipated, and he was quite curious about his obscure lifestyle. Don't worry, Mother. I'm not a kid anymore. I'll be fine. She turned and walked back down the canyon. Frederick led Daniel to his cabin and took the patches off his eyes, placing them on a desk. Then he went to his closet, which had drabby coats hanging from wires. He felt around the creaky wooded floor before finding an old box. He took the box and placed it on the desk next to the patches. He opened the box and pulled out an old yellowish cloth and unwrapped it. Daniel took a look into the box, which had several metal objects, one of which he identified as a key, but the others he did not know. Inside was revealed to be the gun from the earlier encounter. Frederick looked into the tube, then handed it to Daniel, all the while keeping the cloth between his hand and the gun. Is it okay to touch it? It's perfectly safe for you to take it, but never point it the way I did toward yourself or anyone else. The boy took it and examined it. It was mostly metal except for the handle. It had a cylinder and a circle with a thin wire where the finger went. This can kill someone? Easily so. I'd show you how to use it, but I have no ammunition, and I'm sure everyone in the valley is already quite stirred from hearing these things go off. How do they work? You use tiny pieces of metal and put them inside that big part right there. Inside these bullets, there's some powder. It's kind of like dust, which propels the bullets. Once you want to hit something, you aim pointing the barrel at the target. He pointed at the long metal tube. Then you put your finger on the trigger there and pull it. It's like using a bow and arrow. It takes practice to make sure you don't miss. Why don't they just use bow and arrows? That's because a gun is easier to use, faster to shoot, and can penetrate armor more easily. What's armor? It's metal used to shield a soldier from an attack. What was that mirror object that man was trying to smash. That's the portal to my homeworld. And that man was trying to go through it. Why couldn't he? Ha, I bet your so-called mother knows more about that than I do. I suppose it's easy to come here, but hard to leave. Did you come through there? Yes, a long time ago. Why did you come here? I suppose I was forced to come here. Okay, that was the end of the intro.
Oh, nice.
Do you want to read the first chapter, or? Yeah. Or is it too long?
I think that'll. I don't see why not.
All right. So is everyone still with me and everything?
I have a question. Are you going to continue calling them the boy, the man, and the woman? Because that makes it a bit hard to follow. Perhaps using their names instead would make it easier.
Yeah, that's just the intro. This when I start with the first chapter, it switches from third person to first person. You actually get their names and everything like that.
That's not how third person works.
Oh, yes. Yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit raw, I guess.
It's fine, it's fine.
Oof.
Just editing helps.
Oh, yeah. I'm totally raw when it comes to writing and whatnot. Okay, so this is the first chapter. Yeah, I'll just read on a little bit more. I'll just read a couple more pages. No, you can't do this to us, said a young woman. I stared at her as she protested outside her shack, which stood up against the side of an apartment building. People swarmed around us, with some making their way to the factories, while others attempted to buy food and goods from nearby stands. I, of course, sympathized with her, but needed to do my job. I'm sorry, madame, but the landlord wants this place gone. Your shelter is not only violating his property, it's also against the zoning laws to build such a shanty on the street like this. I have 3 children, and my husband was hurt working last month. The woman pleaded. Sorry, ma'am, but by tomorrow morning, the hut needs to be dismantled. Otherwise, let me tell you about that landlord. We originally lived in this building, but the rent went up and we were forced to move out. Can't you give us a week? It would really help. I could understand the woman's frustration. Had the landlord not complained, her dwelling would have been overlooked, but it changed nothing about the situation. I was about to coerce her, but then there was a disturbance nearby that required immediate attention, and I excused myself. In an alleyway, an omnibus was stopped, and the passengers were yelling at the driver. 2 oxen, which had been towing the bus, were stopped as one of them now lay on the ground, obviously exhausted. The driver was trying frantically to pull it up. You worked your animals too hard. It's been an exceptionally busy today. This is my 5th trip already, said the man. Just then, a horn blared as a car pulled into the alleyway. It was an open-top black car in color with luxurious seats. The back held a man in a black suit who had to be one of the city officials. I went over to him and explained the situation, but the official wouldn't have it. If I was still an army officer, I would have just shot the beast right now. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but Can't you return to the main road and go around? I'm a member of the People's Hall, and we are meeting soon. It will take a long time to go the long way around. Sir, by the time I get the obstruction out of the way, it may be just as long. Just get them out of the way, Constable, or you will be working the streets with the judges. I went back over to the carriage vehicle. The passenger reluctantly agreed to disembark and walk to work. With the ox still unwilling to rise, the driver detached it, and the remaining ox was carried the empty bus out to the main street, and the official's car was able to get by. I ordered the driver to get the omnibus and oxen off the street until the end of the day, when the factory workers would be returning home. While I should have returned to the woman's shack, I decided to take care of the issue tomorrow instead went back to my post to finish the morning watch. And I think I'll leave it off there. Yeah, I know I'm a little bit raw of writing, but yeah, that's
No, you're fine.
the taste of.
It's okay. Just keep the practice up and you'll be good. It was fun listening.
Mm-hmm. It was indeed.
Thanks.
Yeah. It's real nervous having to share your stuff. You did good.
Yeah, I'm working on some new stuff, so yeah, I'll definitely come up with some stuff later, you know?
Mm-hmm.
A guideline of writing that everyone uses is that once you introduce a character, instead of using boy, man, girl, woman, you use the name. No matter what point of view it is.
Okay.
So, shall I begin? Or
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
okay. So, this is Fundamental Feelings, Chapter 2. The Beaters. It was December 4th, 2022. First floor, Labyrinth Boss Room. Meeting Ilfang was one change from the beta, Kirito would reflect later, that would have been absolutely killer. If SAO had just been a game. He had found the way the fight started in the beta kind of goofy. Ilfang going from sitting on his throne to yeeting through the air like it was nothing. The start set one mood. The attack didn't follow through. Now, though... So, you have found your way through my labyrinth, swordsman. Ilfang's voice reminded Kirito of one of his father's favorite villains from a Sentai. One of the samurai ones. Old demon who drank a lot and seemed like he was just going to let his minions do everything. When the bastard actually acted, it was one of the biggest oh shit moments in the series. Kirito had watched that one with him. He liked the sword fights. Ilfang slowly rose from his throne and chuckled. So, this is a raid then. Who leads this raid? It took Diavel a moment, but he stepped forward. I do. Today, you fall. Do I now? Ilfang seemed to consider them all a moment, then snorted. You? You are not worth my father's sword. He picked up an axe by his throne and tightened his buckler. You face these toys, children, and they will be your death. The Kobold Lord gestured with the axe, sneering. You lead all of these to their deaths, human. No despair! For now you face Ilfang. The kobold spread his arms in challenge. Diavel let out a cry, and soon many of the others echoed him as they charged in. The first boss battle of Sword Art Online began. Ilfang the Kobold Lord roared in anger as its last HP bar fell into the red. The sound caused the whole raid team to stop what they were doing and back up, waiting to see Ilfang draw his Talwar. That's such trash as you drove me to this point, Ilfang growled. I'd say you should be honored, but you humans do not have honor in our terms. But look well, pale-skinned barbarians. This sword was obtained from closer to the place by my father's sick claw. Asuna and Kirito were on the edge as they watched. Asuna and Kirito were on edge as they watched and waited as Ilfang threw his buckler and axe away. Neither of them doubted Ruby's information, but at the same time, they were hoping that she'd be wrong. Witness the blade that bears my father's name, and by Bishop, Cardinal, and all their guides that are hopelessly merciful to you weak, simpering soft skins. Witness Sick Claw, the Manslicer. Ilfang pulled out his second weapon, and Kirito was off like a rocket. Diavel, get back! That's not a Talwar, it's no Dachi. Kirito-sensei, wait! Asuna called, dashing after him. Diavel, the leader of the raid team for the boss fight, immediately reversed his motion and was able to dance out of Ilfang's range as Kirito barreled into Ilfang like a train. Kirito's blade met Ilfang's, and he had managed to redirect the strike. Asuna, he called, and she was already there in his place, her rapier digging into the digital flesh. Asuna used Ilfang as a springboard to jump back before Ilfang could target her. Kirito-sensei, she urged as she landed behind him. Ah, Kirito agreed. You ready? When you are, Asuna smirked. Unless you aren't? She asked with a raised eyebrow. I'll show you ready, he muttered as he brought his kneel blade up to bear, one hand against the flat of the blade, just in time to block Ilfang's next swing. Kirito used all his strength to deflect the huge Nodachi to one side. Kirito met Asuna's eyes over his shoulder, and she nodded. Like before? She asked. Ah, like before, Kirito agreed. We can do it. Ilfang screamed in rage as it brought its Nodachi down again. Even as Kirito fearlessly brought his anneal blade up to meet the Nodachi, he heard Diavel call out new orders, adjusting the plan on the fly, giving he and Asuna the backup they needed as add-in Cobalt mobs charged in, attempting to aid their leader. If it kept up like this fight would be very simple. He winced as Ilfang leaned close. You'll die by my hand, human. Kirito coughed as he managed to push the boss back. I'll die by that breath of yours first. Of course, simple didn't mean easy. Kirito-sensei. Kirito barely noticed Koshin dash in to parry one of the lieutenant ads. Barely noticed his friend knock the mob back and force it away. Diavel, form up with Koshin. Cover the assault leaders' backs. Diavel called. I'm not going to lose to the likes of you. Kirito grunted as the Nodachi started to be redirected to one side. It was easy enough to do since this was how he had fought the smaller mobs in the beta. Smaller mobs were one thing, though. Ilfang was something else entirely. The way to fight him might be the same, but Ilfang was still a boss, while the others had not been. Ilfang's huge size made all the difference. And so the fight went on, Kirito redirecting the blade and Asuna attacking until the end, where they both attacked at the same time. And, because Ilfang had spoken in the other two animations, Kirito was fully expecting for the boss to say something during his death animation too. Hopefully it would be suitably dramatic, as the other animations have been, or else it would be a huge letdown. When the last of his HP disappeared, Ilfang crashed to the ground, his breath coming in heavy, shuddering gasps. Who would have thought that I, Ilfang, would lose to the likes of you? There was a rumbling sound. Was that a laugh? Yes, it was. Tell me, little humans, the names of those who landed the final blow. Kirito and Asuna shared a look. Should we, Kirito-sensei? We probably should, Kirito agreed softly. Asuna stepped forward. We are Kirito and Asuna, Asuna announced, and we are the ones who beat you. Then take these, for you have earned them, Ilfang said, his breath faltering, and he lay still for a moment before shattering. A congratulations sign appeared, and a window appeared before Kirito and Asuna, declaring that they had received the last attack bonus for their efforts. A cheer rose from the rest of the raid party as Kirito slid to his knees, panting in exhaustion. He'd forgotten how tiring boss fights could be. He felt a hand on his shoulder. Asuna smiled as he looked up at her. Good eye, Diablo said from nearby. Good work, everyone. Unnoticed by almost everyone else, at least one member of the group was not celebrating. He was scowling rather deeply. Oi, stop it! He shouted at the top of his lungs. That drew everyone's attention. Is there a problem here? Kibao-san, Asuna asked, taking a step toward the disruptive player. We beat the boss. Is that not reason enough to celebrate? Kibao opened his mouth to reply, but was then silenced as someone else wrapped an arm around his neck. Asuna smiled. Thank you, Clanka. The player, Klein, gave Asuna the thumbs up. Why should we not be celebrating? Kibao-san, Asuna asked again. Not only did we beat the boss, we beat it without losing a single person. That must account for something, shouldn't it? Kibao growled. Kirito wondered how. Almost everyone else was cowed by that cold look in Asuna's eyes. How did you know the weapon would be changed? He demanded. I told them! A new voice cut in, causing everyone to turn towards the door to the boss room, which was the direction the voice had come from. Rubita? Asuna asked in surprise. Kirito pushed himself to his feet. Ruby, what are you doing here? I thought you were going to wait for us in town. I know. Ruby sighed. I'm the one who found the information that said that Ilfang's secondary weapon had changed, she revealed. I had a feeling that something might go wrong, so I went digging. She sighed. And it's a good thing I did. Kirito nodded slowly. Without your warning, Ruby, someone, or maybe more than one, would have likely died. We were extremely lucky that it was changed into a katana class rather than something else, since I knew how to fight it. Kibao started struggling to get out of Klein's hold. Cheaters! The three of you are cheaters! He snarled. Cheaters? Asuna asked haltingly. Ruby and I might be beta testers, but Asuna certainly is not, Kirito shot back angrily. And the fact that Ruby and I are beta testers does not mean we are cheaters either. Then you are beaters, Kibao growled. Nothing but filthy beaters who hoard information and equipment the rest of us need. Asuna took a step back as Kibao broke out of Klein's chokehold and had to dance out of the way as Kibao started trying to attack her. Kibao's cursor went orange. Kirito stepped forward and intercepted one of Kibao's attacks, stopping the man's rampage cold. "Don't you dare attack my student," Kirito growled, low and dangerous. Then he knocked Kibao's sword out of his hands. "Fine, call us beaters if you wish," he said, his voice ice cold. "Just know that by labeling us as such, you classify all my students as beaters as well. You," Kibao barked, "you were setting yourselves up as the big damn heroes, weren't you?" He laughed. "It's not going to work." Kirito shook his head sadly. "If that is what you want to believe, then so be it." Kirito brought his fingers to his mouth and gave a sharp whistle. "Beaters front and center," he called. Klein and his friends stepped forward. The three that Kirito thought would rage quit were a moment behind, and then finally, Koshin stepped forward. "Koka?" Ruby asked. Koshin coughed. "I'm tougher than Ilfang, you know, Ruby-sa. A mere lieutenant mob will not stop me." Kirito stared out at the rest of the raid. "We will meet you all upstairs." He turned, beginning to ascend the steps. "Hold on." Asuna's voice made the group pause. She was staring at Kibao, and her eyes almost looked to be pitying. "You said cheater earlier," Asuna said. "Yes," Kibao began, but Asuna pressed on. "Well then, Kibao-san, if you truly believe that Kayaba is lying, that this is still just a game, walk off the edge." Kibao jerked back. "That's suicide! Then this isn't a game, which is a shame because this was supposed to be my first game. My brother... Well, my point being, in this situation, cheating is only a valid complaint in an established relationship. One I'm disinclined to have with you, since you tried to attack me and went orange. Let's all just think for a moment. If I remember Kirito-sensei's briefing right, orange means you've attacked another player, and red means you killed them. If this is not a game, that is murder." Kibao's jaw dropped. That is, meaning you just attacked me with the possibility to kill me over either conflating the situation and a game, or because you want someone you can hit to blame over the situation. Asuna looked around at the group gathered for the raid. Choosing between that attitude and that of a beater? I've made my choice. And she turned, and the other beaters joined them in taking the next step. That was the moment Kirito would have to admit later that something started deep in his guts that would take a lifetime to process. And that's that.
Woo!
Thank you.
Nice.
And that
Good
escalated
drama.
quickly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Like it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
thank you.
Good drama.
No, Drake. It was beater is specifically a conjugation of beta tester and cheater. Thank you, Wolf.
Excellent. So
So
I guess
yeah.
that makes it my turn now.
Yep, it is
Yep.
your turn.
All right. Still debating which one of these two I wanted to read. So I'm going to give you guys a quick choice. Do you want to read the Withered Elf or Sophia the Thief?
Withered Elf sounds good.
Yeah.
I was thinking
Withered
Sophia.
Ooh.
Okay.
All right, fine. Yeah, majority rules.
All right. Withered Elf.
I love democracy.
Never worked out for me in the end.
Mhm.
All right. The mausoleum was a sickening black growth in the grove of trees. Around it, you could still see the marks of gravestones and rusted remains of century-old iron fence. Even as nature has started to reclaim these man-made objects, the mausoleum remained untouched by all but rain and wind, almost as if the very plants feared it. Brother Blue didn't need his sister's magic to tell him that this is a cursed place. This is the place, he said, getting off his horse. Tying the reins around one of the iron posts still standing, he turns to his sister, dismounting her own steed. Honestly surprised the bandit didn't lie to us. Nothing a little magical charm couldn't pry out. Sister Red mused as she quickly tied her own steed's reins. Retrieving her staff from her pack, she started casting a spell over her brother. A small shower of sparks coming from the tips of her fingers. Blue could feel his muscles tense up as magical strength started to flow into him. Let's get that door open. Blue quickly grabbed his pack, walking to the mausoleum door. It was a thick stone door, well fitted into its portal, and carved with an image of an elven knight holding his shield in front of him in a restful pose. Shame. Elven stonework is rare. He reached into his pack, pulling out a crowbar. Well, have to break a few eggs. Blue slams the metal bar into the seam of the door, prying with all his might till it cracks and bursts open. Inside was cold and smelt to death. Around the walls, a mosaic of a forgotten elfin heroes doing battle with the vile giants of old. Dominating the back wall was an elven warrior fighting off a three-headed giant wielding a large club, his sword shining with magical might. Lying at the feet of the mosaic was a stone coffin, a carved relief showing the same warrior in rest, sword laid across his chest. Red lit the tip of her staff with a magical glow as they entered. It doesn't look like much, she muttered, looking across the mosaic. We haven't looked inside the coffin itself, Blue reminds her. You know not to judge a book by its cover. He leans over the coffin, slamming the crowbar under the seam, popping it open with ease thanks to his sister's magic. As the lid pops up and slides behind the coffin, sweet music starts to float up to meet them. Both of the siblings grab their ears, a fuzz starting to fall over them as if they were drinking in the alehouse all day. Red shakes her head, her natural magic, pushing back the elfin spell. Brother? She asked, stunned, as he was starting to walk back out of the mausoleum. Fighting off, brother! I can't wait to get back to the tavern. That blonde has been teasing me all week, and all this gold we found will win her bed for a night, he muttered in a slurred voice. Red grabs the back of his gambeson, muttering a few words. No, you don't. Get laid after we found the gold, not before. As she cast the spell to give her brother some protection from the song. I should have put that on him instead of the strength spell. She looked at the crystal hanging from her staff. 2 of the 5 now dim. Sorry. Don't worry about it. At least you can throw some fire and light from your own natural pool. Blue said, looking at them. We will just have to take it slower. Blue climbs back into the mausoleum. Now let's see what was in that coffin. As the two gazed into the coffin, they see a large tunnel extending down into the earth and out of sight. Shouldn't there be a body in here? Red asked sarcastically as her brother tied a rope to the door and tossed the other end down the hole. Seems like someone wanted to add a basement. Blue braced himself, descending into the darkness. Light, he shouted back up as he landed on the earthen floor. The staff lands near his feet, giving him some life, looking at the large tunnel around him. Somewhere down the way, he could hear the dripping of water. Sounds like a pool somewhere down there, he tells the sister as she joined him. You didn't grab my staff? Red asked, picking it up from the ground. What if it broke? Then you would have one less staff, Blue answered drearily, smiling at the annoyed face of his sister. He grabs his shield and draws his sword, looking at one of the side tunnels. It led a short distance away, and in the end of the tunnel filled with dirt and broken planks of wood. Blue, looking up at the ceiling, sees a roughly 6-foot hole in it. Looks like whoever did this gathered the other corpses as well. No bodies. Red held her staff close. Undead? Blue didn't answer. He took a stance in front of her, leading down the tunnel, knowing the answer would be at the end. The tunnel opens up into a 20-foot natural cavern where a small underground pool had formed at the far end, water dripping from above at irregular intervals. Thick moss grew over the stones, which were slippery with slime. Standing at the pool with his back to them was a 7-foot tall, lanky corpse with long pointed ears and patches of red hair that flowed down to its knees. Standing near him were 5 more corpses, each with similar ear and face structures. The undead elves turned to look at the 2, the 5 corpse men moaning with pain of undeath. So you are the 2 that killed my paid-off bandits and seek to ruin my master's plans, the tall elf groaned. It's kind of a thing we do, Blue called back. I am Brother Blue, and this is my sister Red. We are paid to handle the bandits' problem by the town and found out why they were gathering the corpses of those they slain. And it seems we know why. Red taps her staff on the ground, the light growing in size as she tries to intimidate the corpse. Necromancer. As the corpse laughs, hollow and emotionless. I have no fear, girl. I am not the necromancer you seek. Just one of his creations, here to make more undead. He slowly pulls out his sword, it glowing with magical light. And now you will join my army, forever to feel the pain of being raised from the dead, with no escape. Kill them. Blue charges the 5 walking elf's corpses, sliding his sword into the first one's neck, the weak skin unable to keep the head from rolling off. Blue's smile was quickly worn off as the headless corpse kept up his attack, him having to quickly raise his shield to keep the thing from wrapping its withered hands around his own neck. A bolt of fire flew over him, striking the next 2, setting them ablaze. Red's fire more magical bolts down, soon all 5 walking corpses burning with fire. But their attack unyielding. Stop helping! Blue yelled at her. You're making it worse! One of the corpses got past the shield, managing to scrape his cheek with a burning claw. We have to beat the bodies down enough so the magic leaks out. It's the only way. Blue takes a number of well-timed hacks of the sword, aiming for the arms of the corpses. With each swing, another limb went flying, coating him with coagulated blood and burnt skin. As they manage to get past the burning corpses, they start to fall down, groaning a thank you as the spirits trapped inside finally move back to the great beyond. Is that the best you got? Blue shouts at the elf leader, kicking the decapitated elf head at him. The withered elf swings his sword with grace, cleaving the head in 2. I am no minor undead human boy. He grips his sword with both hands, showing 3 rings with crystals set in them. One becomes dull as he moves at Blue with the speed of a cat, swinging with precise strikes. Blue raises his shield, doing all he could to keep up with the magical speed of the elf. Sister, you can help whenever you want. Red raises her hands, blasting the elf with a blast of fire. Each blast was met with a swing of his magical sword. Red keeps up her barrage, her confidence quickly fading as each blast becomes weaker and slower. Blue, seeing his sister running out of magic, quickly takes advantage of the situation and stabs his sword under the arm of the withered elf. Got to beat him down, he thinks, pulling his sword out in a shower of sickening green and black magic that sparkles like the stars. I'm sorry. The withered elf takes his own sword, stabbing into the gut of Blue, only being stopped by his gamberston. I feel no pain, no fear. My body need not be whole to move, but you are alive, and therefore you are fragile. The sword started to spark, a stream of light coursing into Blue, knocking him into the ground. The withered elf steps on Blue's sword, kicking it away into the dark pool of water. Now you will be my slave. Holding the sword in position to stab Blue in the neck, he pulls back his arm to finish the job. The whizzing of fire blasted into the withered elf's back, flames covering his body. Red's scream of rage echoed across the cave as the last 2 crystals leached the power into its final assault. The withered elf holds up his hand, one more crystal growing dim on his rings, a magical shield blocking the attacks. Sliding across the ground, it growls, Annoying girl. One spell is all I need to end your life. The last ring loosens his powers, his hands starting to spark and course with lightning. Blue watches as the withered elf starts to cast his spell. He pulls out his dagger, quickly crawling at the withered elf, stabbing him in the back of the knee. With a grunt and a hard tug, he digs his dagger deep into the ligaments, cutting the leg off in a spray of green and black magic. The withered elf falls back, the blast of lightning striking the ceiling. As the cave lets out a rumble. Rocks fall from above, slamming down around both Blue and the withered elf. Blue holds his shield over his head, dust and rubble blocking sight of him from his sister. Brother! Red yells, running down to the rubble, trying to remove it. No! Be all right. She pushes the rocks out of the way. A slight movement of rocks, and Blue falls out into her arms, coughing and laughing. Well, that was close, he muttered, blood running down his mouth. That was too close, Red sighs, pulling out a small red vial, pouring the healing potion down his mouth. Soon, some of the worst wounds closed and healed over, leaving him with scars, but it was in a state that he would survive. Blue picks himself up, leaning on his sister. Let's see if he had any treasure somewhere, he laughed, holding his ribs in pain. The victory was short-lived as more shifting rubble signaled danger. Crawling out of the dirt and rocks, the upper half of the withered elf burst through, magical sword in his remaining hand. Blue looks down at the corpse, limping up to him, and stomping on its wrist, quickly pulling the sword free. This is mine now, he said, looking at the magical sword. End me, the withered elf begged. You won. Now finish it. Blue and Red look at one another. Blue nodding, taking the sword with a quick slash, cutting the head off the corpse, watching the remaining magic run out. He then collects the rings, tossing them to his sister. And that is the end.
Nice.
Good action.
Mm-hmm.
Very good action on both counts. I'm interested to see more of this. I think just like a little. I think like just little things of little word choice things could have been shifted, but otherwise, I think that was very good overall.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really graphic. It's like Lord of the Rings type stuff going on there.
Yeah. It's
I
kind of
certainly
what I was
enjoyed
going
it.
for. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course.
All right.
Alrighty. I think it is I believe it is my turn. So mine's going to be kind of a little bit of a change of pace. It's going to be like a group of bad guys conversing. Again, just like kind of you know that kind of the phrase like a monster kind of needs to be somewhat in repose in order for it to like be fully like realized as a creature.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of the bad guys just kind of in repose in my book. Alrighty. This is Tempest of Shadow. It's the first book in the Dark Champion series trilogy, and this was one that I'm really proud of. It's something that I've been working on for like about 1.5 years now. I finished it and published it this year, and I'm really happy about how it turned out. So for context, these are the Exalt. So this is kind of basically the world is ruled over by, or at least like large sections of the world are ruled over by this group of despots called the Exalted. Each one is basically the king of an individual set of territory, and each of them also has a unified census records of how many magic users there are, their names, and physical descriptions, as well as a photograph of said person. And they also have a very organized eugenics program where they will deliberately breed more source users so that they can make more. So that's oh um so but basically like relaxing kind of I use the uh something from Guillermo del Toro. He basically says like a lion looks really cool when he's um like when he's attacking, but he also looks good when he is just in repose, just resting on a rock. That's what in repose means. So this is the kind of them kind of just discussing things. The man once named as Gaius Lucius Thelamon ripped a hole in reality with the great power. Black leather boots clicking against the stone floor of the ancient meeting tower. Two of his fellow exalted, Grendel and Belial, were already there, but that was as usual. What was not usual was their whispered conversation. The short, dark-haired, youthful, or at least youthful-seeming, female exalted seemed even younger by comparison to the somewhat grizzled, exceptionally tall male exalted. Raising his eyebrow, Gaius concealed his curiosity at this strange alliance. What were these two planning? At the sight of him, they halted their conversation and turned toward him. Automatically, Belial curtsied, spreading the wide red skirts of her fine silver-embroidered ball gown. Lord Naaman, she said quietly, a hint of sarcasm in her voice, we bask in your presence. Grendel inclined his blonde, slightly graying, balding head slightly. Old friend, it's been too long, he remarked, adjusting in the collar of his black and purple coat. Silently, Gaius mentally contrasted the pair, not straining for height in front of Grendel with difficulty. The older man was half a foot taller than Gaius, a fact that had always rankled him slightly. Belial, by comparison, was extremely diminutive, a little over a foot shorter than her compatriot, and was as young and fresh-appearing as earring, while Grendel's craggy face displayed his age at the time when he had become one of the exalted. I'm surprised that you're here, he remarked casually, emotionless voice cool and sophisticated. I'm interested to see if Ja'ana will come to this meeting now. I do not believe she will. It seems as though she's distancing herself from the rest of us for some reason. Belial sniffed and folded her arms. That hussy has something planned, she remarked. I suspect she's stealing young source users from my cities. For that purpose, or a purpose I haven't discovered, but I have agents within her domain working on it. There have also been disappearances in my realm. Grendel folded his arms. I would ask for your permission to challenge her on this blatant flouting of your laws. Gaius raised a hand. I would like to hear Ja'ana's side of things, he said calmly, though he allowed a hint of steel to creep into his voice. If she does not appear at this meeting to defend her actions, I will meet with her personally and discuss her grievances. Eyes heating slightly, Belial glared at him. I can handle Ja'ana myself. Grendel put his hand on the short woman's shoulder. Naaman is the regent of Iran on earth. The slight reprimand in his voice seemed to have no effect on the younger exalted. We should appeal to him before we can redress our grievances. Face twisting slightly, Belial pushed his hand away. I know the rules, she hissed. Or if I want to fight Ja'ana, I can do it myself. My laws state that I must adjudicate such disputes. Gaius stepped forward, looming over the small woman. I set the rules, and I reinforce them. Abruptly, he seized the great power and shielded Belial. Instantly, the great power surged inside Belial, but rather than her having control of the flow of energy, the Gaius had added her power to his. Belial gasped as he usurped her ability to use the great power, causing her to stagger slightly in surprise. To punctuate his control over her, Gaius played a bit with the power rushing through Belial, abruptly increasing and decreasing the flow, while he enhanced the sensation of pain into the smaller woman. Her teeth gritted, but she didn't scream. Finally, he released her. Swallowing hard, Belial put her hand to her stomach, most likely to quiet her roiling belly. Pointedly, Gaius walked to his seat at the head of the table, not mentioning what had just happened. Just as he took his seat, Bedivere appeared at the front of the table, the giant, muscular man making even Grendel seem average. Belial gave the large man a grim look as she took a seat at the table. Gaius grimaced slightly. Could these two not set aside their differences after 5 centuries? Maria had sacrificed herself to bring the great power in the world, giving humanity greater power and capacity. Besides, Bedivere had suffered enough over the past few centuries. Almost completely black eyes told the story of the man's exposure to the great power, without having the stability of Cyrus to grant some measure of protection. Based on the black aura around him, Gaius knew that he was holding the great power at that time. He probably held it constantly to try and increase his tolerance. It seemed to be working, but his hands always shook in the throes of exquisite pain and pleasure. Naaman, in contrast to his shaking hands, Bedivere's voice was quite stable and resonant. I have a number of new Fabra spawn designs for your approval. I believe you will be pleased with them. Show them to me, Gaius remarked, settling into his chair. Bedivere waved a hand, creating a set of illusions with the great power, the thread seeming to thrum with even more violence than the sword, or says he, formed the constructs. A set of animal-human hybrid creatures appeared. These ones were comprised of twisted shark men, a bull man with sharp canines, and a bat creature with wings attached to its arms. Face impassive, Gaius examined the Fabra spawn, assessing the strengths of each one. The shark and bullmen seem useful, though I wonder if you're trying to recreate the Nosferan with the Batman. Face tightening, Bedivere nodded slightly. That one really rankled, very much like how the lurks were made from the original armies of the Shadow. The more human-looking Nosferan have been made for the almost exclusively animalistic Fabra spawn. It seemed to frustrate to no end that he could only let them breed naturally through a strange natural selection, rather than specifically creating them on their own. Another problem was their sterility made it completely random when they spawned, and impossible for them to breed together. Eventually, I'll figure out what they do, the giant scientist grimaced, dismissing the images. You don't care anyway. You only use your giant dragon men. I have to keep up the theme, don't I? Gaius forced himself to smile. He hated dealing with these petty people. Couldn't they see that his way was the best way? Why did they have to resist him or question him? We each have a theme we like. Belial likes cats, Grendel prefers apes, you're more of a hodgepodge due to your position as their creator, and I like dragons. He didn't actually like dragons. He had simply adopted the sign of the champion, only with an inversion in the theme due to his position relative to the one who had bound Iran millennia ago, only had to have Maria free and then dissipated him. From there his power had spread throughout humanity, for the better in Gaius' opinion. Immortality was a great benefit after all. 900 years of remaining untouched by the years. Years have been Gaius' favorite thing about being exalted, apart from the immense power granted by access to Iran's essence. Good to see most of you are here already. Gaius took a slow breath to see Eris and Ja'ana appear next to the table and take their seats. Eris had been the one to make the comment. The short, dark-skinned woman wore a somewhat antiquated suit, a holdover from her time as a lawyer before the Reconstruction. A plain white shirt and a light azure tie complemented her deep blue suit and accompanying pants, with a sign of a leviathan embroidered on the lapels. She was the only one of the exalted to come from the Sanchen, her dark skin and dark hair complementing each other. By contrast, Ja'ana had fully adopted the fashions of this era, dressed in her own snake green dress. She looked every bit a noble of this land. A slightly bored expression on her angular face, Ja'ana crossed her bare feet under the table and slouched back in her chair. "So, what's on the agenda?" she asked, sounding somewhat impatient. "Your intrusions into what doesn't belong to you," Belial snapped, putting her hands on the table. "I want my source users back, and I'm willing to tear your skin off in order to get them." Ja'ana smirked at Belial. "A pretty little doll like you," he said mockingly. "You couldn't hurt a fly." Belial's eyes burned with fury. "You want to fight, I'll fight, you dancing chit," she hissed. The smirk widened slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about, Belial," she remarked, sitting comfortably in her seat, calloused feet crossing and uncrossing. "At least, in terms of those supposedly adopted source users, my eugenics programs are just better than yours." Despite herself, Belial grimaced in disgust. Gaius rolled his eyes. How else were they exalted to ensure that their population of source users increased, other than by carefully controlling their breeding? It wasn't that distasteful. They could be systematically exterminating those who did not have the talent, rather than simply using them to stabilize the gene pool. "So you deny any involvement with the disappearance in the property of your fellow exalted?" Gaius asked calmly, steepling his fingers. As the regent, none of the exalted dared to interfere with him, but they were free to bicker amongst each other as much as they pleased, so long as they did not oppose or circumvent his own will. "I do," Ja'ana remarked casually, absently tapping her bare feet. Why did she do that? Didn't her feet ever get sore? Rubbing his eyes in slight frustration. "Well, I should think that presenting evidence should be our next course of action." He trailed off as Belial created a portal and retrieved a case from the room beyond. With a rather intense look, the tiny woman began to pull out several pieces of paper and handed them to Gaius. "Here," she said, still glaring at Ja'ana. "These are the census records of all my source users. Each name has a picture beside it for identification purposes. The ones with the red marks are the suspected victims." Gaius accepted the papers and began thumbing through the papers. They were quite well organized, but that was because he had set it out. Each name on the list had a picture of a face next to it, along with a more in-depth physical description and the relative strength of the source, based on an admittedly arbitrary ranking system. There were a surprisingly large number of red marks on the list. Most of them were not the most powerful based on the ranking statistics. However, there was a sizable percentage. "There is an argument to be made that this is just a piece of paper," Gaius remarked. "These names could be fabricated. You can compare them with my other census reports from the past 2 years." Belial's response was coolly delivered. "You will find nothing incompatible with my previous reports." Gaius folded the papers up and placed them in his jacket pocket. "I will give these to my scribes to compare, and then I will launch a full inquiry into Ja'ana's domain." Belial smirked at Ja'ana, who shrugged noncommittally. "Feel free to get started now," she tapped her foot unconcernedly. "I honestly don't mind. It might even be interesting." "All right, moving along," Gaius said impatiently. "We need to discuss other matters." He gave Grendel a firm look. He would take the other man's papers and allow him to do his own off-the-books investigation on his own. "Indeed," Eris put in, "I think that there needs to be an increase for our Faberspawn limitations, as well as having an opportunity to experiment with creating our own Faberspawn designs." Bedivere bared his teeth in a humorous smile. "Trying to undercut my usefulness, Eris?" he asked, somewhat snidely. Eris returned the tall man's smile with a calm expression. "Competition breeds innovation, friend," she said placidly. "You having the sole monopoly in creating Faberspawn will eventually make you creatively bankrupt. But if we are all created our own, each of us will make new designs other than the standard versions we've been using for the past 300 years. Taking a deep breath, Bedivere shook his head. I refuse, he said flatly. My secrets are my own. Eris's expression hardened slightly. You must abide by the will of this council. Her voice was even flatter than his. If you are outvoted, you will have to give up your processes. Gaius fingered his chin absently, but remained silent. The argument continued. Back and forth the two exalted shot barred words at each other. Neither one really had a compelling argument for their side, but Gaius didn't really care. It made sense for each exalted to have their own checks and balances. Bedivere was the most isolationist of all of them, barely leaving his massive castle near the dragon's spine, carefully placed on a peninsula guarded by the mountains behind him and the pair of rivers beside the fortress. Eris was just ambitious, though she was more vocal about her ambitions than Ja'ana, who went about solidifying her power quietly. Finally, he cut into the conversation permanently. Enough. Bedivere has been doing well with what's been required. If you have any ideas for new Faberswan designs, submit them to him. Eris grimaced but remained silent. Ja'ana tilted her head speculatively, then nodded with a slight smile on her face. Bedivere seemed smug, but there was a trace of irritation behind his pleased exterior. Perhaps it was as that he preferred to be the only one making the designs, and the idea of essentially being a waiter didn't appeal to him. I want to discuss the crash, Grendel put in. Those beasts have lived outside our jurisdiction for far too long. It's time they were brought to heel. Those lion creatures are of little significance, Ja'ana remarked coolly. They do nothing besides raid each other in the occasional farm. There's no reason to repeat what happened in the last debacle. Grendel grimaced. I will not fail like Amalazan did, he said coldly. They will fall before me. What makes you think you can beat them? Ja'ana continued. Those monsters are immune to both sources, rendering your source users useless, and they are significantly stronger and more intelligent than Faberswan. She shook her head. Better not to embarrass yourself, Grendel. They're not worth it. The abrupt shift from grimace to grin was quite jarring. Perhaps you have your own machinations among Crash, she said snidely. Perhaps you want them all for yourself. Ja'ana's rich laugh was tinged with contempt. No, I just know what fights are important and which are superfluous. Gaius glanced at Grendel, who then made a snap decision. Do you have a plan for subjugating the Crash? Grendel waved his hand and constructed an illusion, quickly creating a large map of the western waste where the Crest made their home. Here, and here are the major cities. He pointed to the 3 marks on the map. If I can lead an initial attack along the mountains, I can swarm over them and break through to the key points, into the location of the primary attack, then pressed a finger against the largest dot. If I can enslave the population here, I can spread to the rest of the waste. Bedivere, you will provide an additional 20,000 Faberspawn to Grendel's army, Gaius commanded. I want the Kresh put under the heel of the Exalted at long last. Bedivere paled slightly, then nodded. That is a very large number, my lord, but I can provide that many in roughly a month. Gaius stood up, indicating by his posture that he was finished with this. We will meet together next week to continue the meeting. Despite being the first to stand, he waited until everyone else had gone, before preparing to leave. However, Ja'ana stayed behind, head tilted speculatively. Why cover up my exploits? She asked, uncrossing her legs and taking them off the table. Because they profit me, Gaius said, dated coldly, extending his hand. I assume you have the device? The tall woman opened her hand and opened a portal above her hand. A large spike formed from what looked like steel fell into her hand, then drifted to Gaius. He slowly took hold of the device and ran his hands along it. He seized both powers, Cyrus and Iran, but he simply held them. As he turned the spike over in his hands, he picked out a small thread of each element and sent them into the device. Casually, he tossed it back to her, releasing the sword as he did. It is reset, he remarked. You can set a new key for the device. Grinning, Ja'ana set the device aside. Thank you, Naaman. Before you get any ideas of shutting me off from the source, Gaius said quietly. Understand this. Because I was the last person to reset the device, I do not require a key to enter its sphere of influence. Fair enough, Jean remarked calmly. Your additional share of source users will be provided once they're trained. Be sure they can be used as weapons by at most a month and a half, Gaius said coolly. And I want your fabricators to just send me a prototype of the device in a week. Shrugging, Sha'ana stood up and opened a small portal. I already have one. She reached through and took a small spike from the other side of the portal and before levitating it toward him. He accepted the device casually, then pocketed it. Your participation is appreciated, a thought occurred to him. Did you lose any source users? 3 were unaccounted for and 6 were confirmed as dead, Sha'ana grimaced. But we were able to see several times that. Good. Ensure that they are well trained by the allotted time. Gaius translocated away. The end.
That's amazing. So good.
Mind tingle.
Oh,
Yes.
thanks. Thank you. What did you like about it?
All of it.
Yeah.
I was kind of flippant. I know.
Mm. I got the vibe of they really, really don't like her.
They kind of don't like each other. It felt like.
They don't like each other, but they all hate her more. That's what it felt to me.
The creatures, are they chimera type things? The hybrids?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, they're basically animal-human hybrids.
Yeah,
Or-
one thing I heard recently is they took like a sturgeon and a paddlefish. They made a hybrid with those 2 fish accidentally.
Dang.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking about that. But yeah, eugenics, that's definitely a really interesting subject.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's just basically these people are just kind of despicable because they're basically treating humans like animals in a lot of ways, like eugenics camps.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you, Nick. Yeah, I tried to make them as unique as possible. Part of what helped was I used Pinterest to kind of make each one distinct from each other by just having like a different actor portray them. Like I imagine Daniela Harris as Belial, Charles Dance as Grendel, Daniel Craig as Gaius Thalamon, the Catherine Waterstone, the chick from Fantastic Beasts, and Taraji P. Henson as Eris.
Nice.
Alrighty.
Good talk.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you guys liked it.
It was really good.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, this has been fun. Nice, quick, short stream, a writer showcase stream. I want to thank my wonderful guests, Nef Champion, Wunderwaffe, and Dr. Crow.
Pleasure.
So, the one thing that remains is one last thing.
Holy shit. Okay, we're going.
Wise Wolf, why do you dislike it if it's under 2 hours?
Nick Brown, I find that hitting everything kind of helps. Works well with TV remotes, calculators, Nurse Crow. You know,
Only
but
if the hammer is not
hammer.
construction grade. Mallet. Whatever.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, we got some talented people.
Yeah, I just want to say it's really cool
Thank you.
actually being on a stream with
And I'm here too.
yeah, you and effing Crow. Yeah, it's a really different experience other than hiding in chat. Bother important F.
I suppose I could have cut it off at a different place. I suppose I could have cut it off at a different place, but that was already almost 2,000 words.
I thought it was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, lots
I'm-
of drama there.
I'm really enjoying the dynamic that my characters have. It's kind of unique to what everything else I've done so far.
All right. Well, I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with. I will see you guys later. Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.